Welcome, everyone, to the February 13th meeting of the Zoning Board of Examiners and Appeals. If you'll please take roll call.
Mr. Vig?
Here.
Mr. Kars? Mr. Ron? Ms. Vlad?
Here.
Ms. Eicher? Mr. Hart?
Here.
Ms. Dole? Here. Ms. McKay?
Here.
Thank you.
All right. First item on the agenda is the minutes for approval from June 13th, July 11th, and December 12th of 2013. Are there any comments from the board members on the minutes? Any corrections? Can I get a motion to approve? Mr. Vig, and seconded by Ms. Dole. Thank you. Seeing no corrections or objections, the minutes are approved. Next item on the agenda is disclosures. Are there any disclosures from the board tonight? Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. We've got 3 resolutions to approve tonight. I'd like to get a motion from one of the board members to approve the resolutions on the agenda. Are there any resolutions to pull? Can I have a motion if there's something to pull, please? Mr. Vig.
Perhaps Lori can help, but we need to have a motion to approve the consent agenda before we can pull it. So I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Can I get a second, please? Ms. McKay, thank you. All right. Can I have a motion to pull any resolutions? Okay. Are there any items to pull? Sorry about that.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Vig.
Due to a lack of attendance by board members present for case number 2013-012, I suggest we pull that from the consent agenda. Is it a motion? Pardon me? Yeah. So it'll be on a future agenda at an upcoming meeting.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other resolutions that need to be discussed? Ms. Dole?
I'm sorry, I didn't follow. Were all of them pulled or just one?
No, just the first one. So resolution 2013-012.
Oh, no, this one. This one was pulled.
That one's not pulled.
Yeah, you were. Right, okay, so I don't need to. Never mind.
Okay, we're good. All right. If we can vote, please, on the remainder of the consent agenda. Motion? Oh, just. Okay, the consent agenda has been approved. All right, we're on to public hearings. On variance hearings, the order of business is as follows. Tonight, we have 3 variance requests. One case 2014-006, has been postponed. We have a letter here from the applicant's representative requesting postponement based on the short board tonight. And I would like to identify to everyone that there is, in fact, a short board tonight, meaning all of our members are not in attendance. All right, regarding short board member commission, a postponement is offered to and can be agreed to by the petitioner. You'll be moved to the next regular meeting agenda, and that should occur within 30 days. This does not require renoticing the case with regard to public hearing notices and advertising. If the petitioner is willing to postpone but unable to attend the next available meeting date within 30 days, the petitioner has a one-time only option to choose the next date. He or she can attend at no extra fee. When a postponement is requested by the petitioner, there is a rescheduling fee per AMCR 2120-007A, and a new public hearing date shall be determined by the Planning Division. This will put their case in the next available cutoff date queue as if they were submitting their case for the first time. Are there any other representatives here tonight who would choose to postpone their cases? Seeing none, I'd like to get a motion to approve the postponement of case 2014-006 per the petitioner's request. Mr. Vig has moved and Mr. Hart has seconded.
That's correct, Madam Chair. I move that we accept the petitioner's request for postponement of case 2014-006.
And Mr. Hart has seconded. Does he need to speak to that? No. Are there any objections? Seeing none, the postponement has been accepted. All right, moving on to public hearings for tonight. I, being the chair, will introduce each of the variance requests, and I'll read into the record the case number and the name of the applicant. Staff will present a sufficiency of notice, and then the board will rule on that sufficiency. Staff will then provide a brief presentation outlining the variance request. The board and the applicant may then direct questions to staff through the chair. Then the applicant will give their presentation with the burden of proof resting upon the applicant. Any applicant will have 10 minutes to make their presentation. The board must be convinced by preponderance of the evidence that the variance should be granted. Upon the conclusion by the applicant, the board and staff may direct questions to the applicant through the chair. The hearing will then be open for public testimony. Anyone testifying may be questioned by staff, the board, or the applicant, and each person testifying will have 3 minutes to do so. At the conclusion of the public testimony, staff, followed by the applicant, will be able to provide rebuttal testimony. The chair will entertain a positive motion from the board to grant the variance, which must be seconded. The board will then develop oral findings and conclusions based on their decisions in the variance request. Every final decision of the board will clearly state on its face that it is a final decision. Every decision made by the board will be based on written findings of fact and conclusions which are supported by the recorded proceedings. The findings will be sufficient to provide reasonable basis for understanding our decision. The board's findings will specifically address why the criteria has or has not been met. Staff will reduce the oral findings and conclusions to writing for later adoption by the board. Any person that is aggrieved by the board's decision may appeal that decision to the Superior Court within 30 days of written notice being delivered to the applicant. With that being said, we'll move forward to the first case on the agenda. First case is 2014-017. The petitioner's name is Anthony Turner. Is the petitioner present? Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Will staff please present a sufficiency of notice?
Yes, Madam Chair. 50 notices were mailed. 2 comments were returned in support, and 1 comment was returned that did not state either opposition or support. It basically described the narrowness of the road. This is a variance request from AMC 2140-080G.1 to allow a new attached garage and enlargement of a portion of the existing garage structure to encroach into the required front yard setback in the R6 zoning district. The site is a rectangular-shaped lot. It's located between Old Hillside Way on the south and Old Rabbit Creek Road on the north. The lot contains 49,949 square feet within the lot boundaries. However, in the R6 district, one half of the abutting right-of-way, the area of one half the abutting rights-of-way may be included in calculation of the lot area. With calculating one half the abutting right-of-way, the lot size is 1.43 acres, which conforms to the R6 district regulations. The house and the attached carport and entryway were built in 1972. The property was zoned R6 in 1974. The structure does enjoy non-conforming rights. However, the new owner has discovered that portions of the garage, the entryway, are not conforming to current standards. They are in poor shape, and so to bring it up to current standards, a variance would be required. The proposal is to convert the existing attached garage, that carport, into a master bedroom, and to bring the structure up to current code, and then to construct a 3-car garage that will be located further north on the lot, and it will be attached to the existing structure, which was also built before the implementation of the R6 zoning district, and it too does currently enjoy non-conforming rights. In reviewing the request before the board, this lot, standard one, this lot is steeply sloped. The house was built quite close to the existing right-of-way, but it was built on the most level portion of the lot. In terms of standard two, the development pattern of the lot was established due to the steep topography of the lot. The lot declines approximately 72 feet in elevation toward Rabbit Creek. Strict application of the code would require that the property be redeveloped in a manner that conforms to the current 50-foot front yard setback, which would involve demolishing the existing structure. It should be noted that the septic system is located directly behind or north of the existing structure, and probably it would include having to reestablish a new septic system. This hardship is not self-imposed as required by Standard 3. Standard 4, this is located in large lot subdivision. There are dense natural vegetation. Privacy is protected from the adjoining lots. The proposed development will not adversely affect the use of adjacent property as permitted, as it is a permitted use under the R6 district regulations. And if granted, the variance will not change the residential character of the zoning district and will not permit a use that is not otherwise permitted in the district. Also, the variance will allow the applicant to repair and expand a portion of an existing structure into additional living space. The proposal should have no adverse effect on the health, safety, or welfare, as its proposed use is already permitted in the zoning district, and the variance is the minimum required to allow the repair and remodel of an existing space that was constructed on the property prior to the effective date of the R6 zoning regulations. The department, therefore, in reviewing this request, does recommend approval subject to 3 conditions on page 7 of the packet. There is a shed located in the west side, 25-foot side yard setback, and it's the east side yard setback, and there is no information on when that shed was placed there. I understand it is not on a permanent foundation. If it were less than 150 250 square feet, it would be allowed to remain. But as scaled on the as-built that was submitted, it appears to be 209 square feet. So the applicant does need to either relocate the shed or remove the shed or try to establish non-conforming rights for the shed to remain in the current location or remove the shed from the property. And recommended condition 3 addresses that particular issue. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff? All right, seeing no additional questions, will the applicant please come forward and provide your presentation? When you speak into the mic, if you please give us your name and spell your last name.
Yes, my name's Daniel Bowles, B-O-L-L-E-S. I'm the representative for Anthony Taylor. He is sitting here with me. And we wish to extend our thanks for hearing this and our thanks to staff for a favorable review. In looking over the findings, we have no objection to any of them. Concerning the comments not received from Rabbit Creek Community Council, which is the principal council in this area, Mr. Turner did go to the meeting in January, did speak to them, and they did give a favorable reply back to him in support of this. He can speak to that if you would like. We agree on the department's recommendations to obtain a notice of zoning action. We agree. Submit a plot plan to scale. We agree to that. On the third one, obtaining a non-conforming determination or for the shed location or relocate it or a variance, we would prefer to relocate the shed. But unfortunately, that will take a large piece of equipment. And since the only time we'll be able to have equipment in there is in the summertime, we would like to do that as a condition of the certificate of occupancy for the building permit. It will give us a chance then to do that. If it remains that it has to be relocated prior to the issuance of the building permit, then of course we have to mobilize and demobilize equipment on 2 occasions. And it would be economically and physically prudent to do it with the building permit and not prior to having the building permit issued, which the variance sort of presents a catch-22 situation. We can't get the building permit without the variance, and we can't get the variance without moving the shed. So if that is possible to have that written in that way, that would be appreciated. The property is indeed slope affected. The page 15 has the topo from Land Tech there showing it. It does not clearly identify the 2 terraces that are in there, but there is a 4-foot drop on 2 occasions in there. And when they originally put in the septic system, they had to provide these to get to the lower portions of the lot. And so that makes fill or pilings in this area a lot more complicated than just going in the way we have designed the garage now to do the 28-foot setback and then going back to where you're only having a 10.5-foot encroachment into the 50-foot front yard setback. On the front of the garage, where an addition is going, that is to provide ingress and egress to the garage without having to physically go outside the house and into the elements. Converting that garage to a bedroom will allow better use of the facility, of the house rather, and will, by adding that portion to the front, we will be able to keep from having to go outside the house to gain entrance to it. Also, by eliminating the existing front porch we're also losing 7 square feet. Current front porch is 127 square feet, and the proposed addition is 120 square feet, so there's a definite reduction there. Okay. You have the building plans there in front of you, pages 27 through 31, 32. They show this situation that exists out there and what the proposal will look like. It's, as the neighbors in the area have said, two that responded will add to the neighborhood, and it provides an adequate place for Mr. Turner and his family to reside. So appreciate a favorable vote on that, and I'll stand for any questions.
Any questions from the board of the applicant? Anything else you'd like to say? All right, no questions. Thank you.
Okay.
Seeing none, we'll open it up for public hearing. Is there anyone interested in testifying this matter? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing now. There's really no rebuttal. Seems like everyone's on the same page. Any other questions, comments from the board? Go ahead, Mr. Vick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. O'Brien, speaking to the applicant's desire to tie the shed relocation to issuance of the certificate of occupancy, is that something that's acceptable to staff as a process?
Madam Chair, Mr. Vig, I am somewhat concerned. Typically, applicants have 1 year to exercise the variance, the right to the variance. Typically, that is done with the recording of a notice of zoning action. Because there is that one condition, I am concerned that if it's tied to the issuance of certificate of occupancy and you cannot get a building permit without the variance, then they haven't exercised their right to the variance, and then by that argument, they can't be issued a building permit. And so we cannot issue a notice of zoning action unless all the conditions are met. So one of the things that could be done is to submit the plot plan at least to that, and I would recommend, if the board would consider not tying it to the certificate of occupancy, but making it as a condition of approval of the obtaining a building permit, that it shall be relocated with the building permit, making it a requirement of that building permit, not leaving it till the end of the entire project.
Thank you, Ms. O'Brien.
The applicant's got input. Can I allow that? Yeah. I know. It's probably in response to. You can still ask questions, right? Okay. I see the applicant has a question. If you'd like to approach and spell your last name for us, please.
Thank you, panel. My name's Anthony Turner. It's Anthony, A-N-T-H-O-N-Y, Turner, T-U-R-N-E-R, and I'm the applicant for this variance. Just in relation to this issue of the shed, it was something that the assessor's office had actually stated that the square footage of the shed was only 192 square feet, and it was something that we didn't include in this variance application because we believed it was under the square footage that actually meant we would need to move that shed. I've got no problems with moving the sheds. I've got no problems with taking that shed down. Maybe I misunderstood the wording from Margaret, but just in terms of the building and how we would go about the construction of this, of what we've applied for in the variance, it would definitely be advantageous for us if we could move that shed as part of the building work on this residence. As I said before, if we'd known it was the square footage it is, if we'd known it had to get variance, we would have applied for that in this application. But that was something that wasn't done. If we can move that shed at the time that we bring in this heavy machinery to do the main work, that would be something that I would ask for and would be grateful to get.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. I'm just thinking through the logistics of this. I understand the concern with bringing equipment in twice. I would anticipate that at the point where you realize you're going to have your permit, they can't release the permit until they're complying with the condition of the variance. So knowing the timing of when you're going to be getting your building permit, when you're going to be mobbing, it seems logical to me that, a couple of weeks in advance of that, you could start mobbing, pull your building permit directly following that. Do you see what I'm saying? It's just the timing of when you do it, from my perspective. Does anyone else have input on that? Mr. Bowles.
Yes, to the chair. Usually, you can get a contractor once you have a permit, and then you have to work on their schedule. It's easy enough, and it's done quite frequently with the building department, I know because I spent quite a few years approving plans there, to mark the plot plan with the shed to be relocated. And since this does involve a variance, it will require a zoning inspection prior to certificate of occupancy. That's part and parcel with a variance or a conditional use, is that they have met all the conditions. So it would be easy enough to defer it to the permit, and that the third requirement could easily say that the shed, this does not include the shed in the variance. And the variance is understood to be moved in conjunction with the building permit.
Ms. O'Brien, would you like to address that?
Madam Chair, I would understand that they do submit a plot plan and they do indicate what they're going to do on the plot plan. And I assume that they also have to submit an as-built when the work is done?
Yes.
You have a year within which to work, and if an as-built can be drawn up after the work is done, that you submit to building safety and submit an as-built to the planning division that can be recorded with the notice of zoning action, I think that would be sufficient to verify that the will of the zoning board, whatever that turns out to be, has been carried out.
Okay, through the chair to Ms. O'Brien. So are you saying that we can obtain a building permit without the variance?
Madam Chair, Mr. Bowles, what I'm concerned about is that how can you obtain the building permit if you don't have the variance? And the variance does not become effective until the conditions are met, and you've basically got the shed and then submitting a plot plan. The reason I was concerned about the shed is that I had to use a scale. It wasn't dimensioned on the as-built that was submitted to the department. So scaling is always inaccurate. So if a plot plan to scale of what you're proposing, if you can provide the actual dimensions of the shed, maybe it does conform and it is less than 150 square feet that allows you it to remain within the side yard setback. But it can't exceed 150 square feet to remain where it's located by code.
Right, and, excuse me.
So that's why I was concerned about the timing of getting your building permit and actually having an approved variance in hand.
Okay, thank you, Ms. O'Brien. We have a board member who'd like to speak. Ms. Dole, go ahead.
Sorry, I withdraw my request.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Well, if I'm interpreting this correctly, you are identifying the acceptance of a plot plan that would identify the current location of the shed and the requirement for it to be removed. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, what I was suggesting is that as long as when the construction, if the construction can be completed within a year, they have a year to exercise the variance, they have to submit an as-built survey after the construction is completed, and if the shed has to be relocated, they can reflect the relocation of the shed on the as-built survey, and at that time, the property would be found to be in conformance, and we could issue the notice of zoning action to be recorded, and that would finalize the variance. And the will of the board would be carried out.
Thank you.
And that would verify that the shed has been relocated to a conforming location.
Agreed. Mr. Bowles, do you have any objection to that?
No, as long as we can get a building permit.
Are there any other questions of the board, of the applicant or staff? Seeing none, I think we have a proposed solution. All right. We'll close the public hearing now. Can I get a positive motion on this case? Mr. Vig, please provide your motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that in case number 2014-017, we grant a variance from AMC 21.40.08G1 to allow a new attached garage and enlargement of a portion of an existing structure to encroach into the required front yard setback in the R6 district, subject to conditions 1, 2, and 3 is presented on page 7 of the staff packet with the additional provision of requirement number 3 that the applicants submit an as-built demonstrating the existing shed in a conforming location. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vig. Do I have a second? Ms. Dole, would you like to address the motion?
Yes, first, I was wondering if your motion included the construction of an attached garage also to encroach into that 22 feet into that front yard setback. It looked to me that the department recommendation was for both repair and expansion of an existing structure as well as construction of an attached garage. And I might have missed it, but I didn't recall hearing you say that, so I want clarification on the motion.
Mr. Vig, would you like to address that?
I'm not sure what I said, but I believe I read the request as stated on page 1 of the staff packet to allow a new attached garage and enlargement of a portion of the existing structure to encroach.
Correct. That's what I heard as well. All right. Do I have a second on this? Mr. Hart, thank you. Would you like to address the motion?
No, thank you.
All right. Mr. Vig, would you please address your findings?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I, reading through the staff's presentation in the packet and the applicant's testimony, I agree with staff's findings in regard to standard number 1, that the circumstances of the subject property are such that they're exceptional and extraordinary. The topography is shown on the map in the packet is very steep just on the north side of the house. So I believe that standard is substantially met. Standard 2, strict application of the code would create an exceptional or undue hardship upon the property owner. I agree that that standard is substantially met because of the physical circumstances of the lot. Standard number 3, the hardship is not self-imposed. I agree with staff's findings in that regard. The special conditions result from the characteristics of the lot, and it was zoned after the structure was initially built, or rezoned, I should say. Standard number 4, the variance, if granted, will not adversely affect the use of adjacent property. I believe that that standard is substantially met as well. Standard 5, the variance would not change the character of the zoning district in which this property is located. I agree with staff and the applicant that that is the case. Standard 6, the variance would not adversely affect health, safety, and welfare of the people of the municipality of Anchorage. I believe that that standard is substantially met. It's simply to repair the existing structure, revise it somewhat, and add on an attached garage, which in Anchorage is a common feature of a single-family home. And standard number 7, I believe it's the minimum variance that will make possible a reasonable use of the land. And so I intend to support the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Vig. Mr. Hart, would you like to address the motion?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with staff findings for findings 1 through 7 and intend to support the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. Please vote. Oh. Any additional findings by the board before we vote? Sorry. Okay. Let's vote, please. The variance has been granted. Mr. Bowles, Mr. Turner, the decision of the board is final. You'll receive a written finding from staff within 30 days of receiving the finding if you feel aggrieved by the decision. You can appeal that decision to the Superior Court. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Our next case is case 2014-020. The petitioner is Patricia O'Gorman. Is the petitioner present? Yes. Thank you. Will staff please present a sufficiency of notice?
Yes, Madam Chair, on January 23rd of this year, 126 public hearing notices were mailed. One notice was returned in support of the variance. The petitioner submitted 2 letters from neighbors in support of the variance request. Also, South Addition Community Council at the January 16th, 2014 meeting approved a resolution in support of the case and the variance request to permit construction of a garage with alley access that would result in a 41.3% lot coverage.
Are there any comments from the board regarding the sufficiency of notice? Seeing none, will staff please present your case?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This variance has been reviewed under the new code that became in effect January 1 of 2014. It's a variance from Chapter 2106, Dimensional Standards and Measurements, Table 12.06-1, to allow a proposed garage to exceed the 40% maximum lot coverage in the R2D two-family residential district. The petition site is South Addition, Block 27B, Lot 3D. It's generally located on the west side of P Street between West 11th Avenue on the north and West 12th Avenue on the south. The request before the board would result in a 41.3% lot coverage. The request is the existing 298 square foot carport and the 70 square foot as scale detached shed will be removed, and a 482 square foot 2-car garage is proposed to be constructed. This results in a 41.3% total lot coverage, and it is exceeding the allowed lot coverage by 83 square feet, or 1.3% variance. This lot was platted in 1947, and it measures 70 feet by 88 feet. It is square-shaped. Vehicular access to the carport is from the alley via P Street, which is a 60-foot wide right-of-way. The non-conforming rights have been established for the existing, granted a certificate of non-conforming encroachment for the house. It does encroach 1.2 feet into the required 10-foot west rear yard setback. In reviewing there are now 8 standards for variance under the new Title 21. The first standard is the same. There are extraordinary physical circumstances, and it did not appear that this particular lot had extraordinary physical circumstances. It is regularly shaped. It is relatively even and level. It did not appear to be, it is not impacted by wetlands, streams, or major drainage ways. There do not appear to be any physical constraints to development of the property in a conforming manner. However, the property has been developed since, I have a history of it, 1959. There have been numbers of owners prior to the current owners, and the existing dwelling has been enlarged over time by different owners, and that reached the current lot coverage size. So that was just a little bit of history of this property. And Condition 2 said that requires that because of these physical circumstances, strict application of this code creates an exceptional or undue hardship. This standard does not appear to be substantially met. There does not appear to be any physical constraints associated with the lot that would preclude having been constructed in a conforming manner. The only thing regarding this lot is the length of time it has been developed, the number of owners, and the enlargement of the original structure over time. And that the hardship is not self-imposed. Well, there is no physical constraint associated with the lot. However, the enlargement of the structure to its current size is not necessarily the result of actions by this particular owner. It's just the nature of how the property was developed over time and the need for having a garage, which has generated this variance before the zoning board. Standards 4 through 8 appear all to be substantially met. If granted, a garage would not adversely affect the use of the adjacent property. There are other lots that access onto the alley, and they do enjoy having a garage. The intent of the code, garage is a permitted use in most residential residential zoning districts. A garage is a typical amenity for a single-family residential use, and Standard 5, it does appear to be substantially met. Condition number 6, a garage would not affect the health, safety, and welfare of the people of the municipality of Anchorage. It is only going to be 83 square feet larger than the existing carport, and there are many garages throughout South Addition. And persons with disabilities are provided with access as required by ADA. This particular dwelling does have outside portable ramps that have been constructed and are in use to accommodate wheelchair access. An attached garage would allow safer entry into the dwelling, the domicile for the residents. And it is the minimum variance that will make possible a reasonable use of the land. 83 square feet is a minimal variance. It's a minimal enlargement of what is already existing. And it certainly makes a reasonable use of the land in terms of obtaining a safer access to the principal structure with an attached garage. However, staff is not able to recommend approval as 3 standards did not appear to be substantially met. However, if the zoning board at the conclusion of the public hearing determines that all standards are substantially met, the department has provided 4 conditions on page 7 of the packet for their consideration. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. O'Brien. Are there any questions for staff from the board? Seeing none, will the applicant please come forward and provide your presentation? When you speak into the mic, if you would please spell your last name for us.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Patricia O'Gorman, O''G-O-R-M-A-N, and I'm the owner of the property in the variance request. John Holton, listed as the representative, is my spouse. I want to thank the Zoning Board of Examiners and Appeals for hearing our variance request, and also thank the staff for their assistance. We agree with the findings of the staff in standards 1 through 8, and would absolutely agree to the conditions that the staff asked if the board approves this variance. Tonight, we would like to address the first three standards where they don't technically appear to be substantially met. We want to replace our existing one-vehicle carport constructed in the 1950s with a 482-square-foot two-car garage. To accomplish this, we need the board's approval as the proposed garage exceeds the allowable lot coverage by 83 square feet. This is only 1.3% over the allowable 40% lot coverage. We believe granting the variance will have no negative effect on or impact on the site or the neighborhood. We have submitted letters of support from the neighbors and a unanimous endorsement of the Community Council. Additionally, granting this variance we believe is consistent with the Anchorage's 2020 comprehensive plan. Standard number 1, which I believe you have in front of you, that speaks to the existing or the existence of the exceptional or extraordinary physical circumstances. We believe those are exceptional circumstances of this property that give rise to the need for the variance. The house is constructed approximately in 1950 and has been added on to multiple times by previous owners as evidenced by grandfather rights. The lot only contains 6,160 square feet, whereas many neighboring lots have 7,000 square feet or larger, and all the lots on our alley access have garages. The house is not centered on the lot, and it is not square with the lot corners, not for any apparent reason, but possibly due to an error in construction or surveying tools at the time. In standard number 2, speaking to physical circumstances, the size of the lot in the existing house create the need for a variance in order to have a garage. The original subdivider and the developer of the property could not have envisioned the need for a garage. Today, garages are commonplace. They are a necessity for living in a cold climate and certainly a necessity with aging. Garages are now a common right of enjoyment in the neighborhood. The property abuts a dedicated alley. All houses on this alley have garages. This variance request will allow for access to our proposed garage off the alley, similar to that of all three houses. The number 3 standard, that the hardship is not self-imposed and special conditions and circumstances do not result from the actions of the applicant. Such conditions, circumstances do not merely constitute inconvenience. We do not believe the hardship is not self-imposed. We purchased the house with a carport 34 years ago. We hope to live here for many more years. However, upgrading to a two-car garage will certainly significantly improve our quality of life. Simply put, a carport was sufficient for us and our 2 children, but now at 65 and 66 years old, we find a garage as a necessity. I believe it's also important and relevant to note approving this variance request is consistent with the goals and policies stated in the Anchorage 2020 comprehensive plan, and I would ask that my husband address this part of our presentation.
Thank you, Ms. O'Gorman. Mr. O'Gorman, if you'd please approach stand and spell your name.
Right.
Yeah,
It's Holton.
Yeah.
Just correct.
So, hi, thanks very much, and thank you for taking the time to meet with us, and thanks to the group as well and staff that have helped us out. And my name is John Holton, and it's Holtan. We just have different last names as well. So I just wanted to really kind of tie in a little bit of the 2020 plan, which you probably have all read in the past and seen, but there are a series of goals in there supported by policies. And a lot of those policies tie into what boards and commissions' guidance is. And one of those, it talks about compatibility of scale in housing and development. And clearly what our house is a single-family house. It's 1 story, and it looks like just the rest of the houses. Adding this garage is not going to change the profile in any way, shape, or form. And not only that, we want to enhance the neighborhood, and you'll see in one of the comments made by Sue Ellen Tatter, who lives near us, she even says that, well, your house will even look better than our open carport. So we're trying to do the same kind of thing in terms of upgrading the neighborhood.
And also, a lot of the garages are paved, and in the 2020 plan, it tries to help you restrict the amount of pavement that goes out and concrete. And we're not putting any concrete or paving in there. We're abutting right up to the alley edge, which is allowed under Title 21. It's a modern, efficient upgrade for us. We've got an older house built in probably at least by the 1950s. It's going to upgrade the value of the property, and also it's going to contribute to the property tax revenues by the municipality of Anchorage, which isn't a bad thing either, and we're not opposed to paying for that. And also we're not going to take down any trees or pave anything or cover any land. So that goes along with trying to go with the 2020 plans. And, enclosed garage will clearly extend the useful life of our house. And we want to live there as long as we can, and hopefully somebody else will as well. And I think a garage will really help that. Patricia is going to go and speak again to some closing remarks here, and that's it for us, for me anyway. So it's dovetailing. The 2020 plan and the variance that we're asking for really fit nicely together in terms of the growth of Anchorage.
Thank you, Mr. Holton.
Thanks.
Ms. O'Gorman, just to let you know, you've got just under 3 minutes.
Okay.
Good. Can you make that one thing? You said we agree with staff remarks of 1 through 8. We agree with.
Oh, 4 through 8. Okay, thanks. Yeah. Did you catch that? I just misspoke when I said we agree with the staff's. It's really their findings on the standards of 4 through 8, and we don't necessarily agree with their findings on standards 1 through 3. Just in closing, South Addition's a thriving, older, mixed-use, single, and multifamily neighborhood. As senior citizens, we welcome access to downtown, local shopping, and plan to remain here. The house is by no means overbuilt for the neighborhood and will retain its low profile as a single-story home. Having an enclosed garage, we believe, becomes a necessity with aging, and the variance request to replace this single-vehicle carport and build the 482-square-foot two-car garage. This is a minimum size to make it possible to garage 2 cars. We also think that there's no other way to reduce the structure footprint. The reality is we're asking for a small increase of 83 square feet, which Margaret spoke to, and that it is only 1.3% over the allowable maximum. We appreciate your consideration and ask that you approve our request for this variance. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Are there any questions to the applicant? Mr. Vig.
Thank you. Ms. Gorman, can you you just spoke to something I was wondering about, the size of the garage, and that it's compact or whatever as it reasonably can be.
It's really the 482 square feet is the minimum size garage we feel for getting our current cars in there, one of which is simply a Subaru station wagon and the other one is a 2-seater truck. We don't have, we drive fairly small vehicles.
And the existing carport, does that allow parking of 2 vehicles under that?
You can get 1 vehicle in comfortably if the 2 vehicles are within about, you can't actually open the car doors completely on either side when they're both parked in there. So there's only 1 ever parked in there because you can't.
Someone would have to stay in the car all the time otherwise.
You cannot get out of the doors on all sides of the cars when they're both in there.
Okay, that helps me understand
Yeah.
proportions that
Yes.
you've shown. Thank you.
Okay.
Are there any other questions of the applicant? All right, seeing none, thank you. You can have a seat. We'll open it up for public hearing now. Is there anyone interested in testifying in this matter? Yes, sir. Please approach the stand. And if you would spell your last name for us.
My name is Edward Lopez, Lopez,
and I am the owner and resident at the corner of, I guess it's the southeast corner of S Street and 10th Avenue. And I'm here to actually request the Board of Examiners to not to accept and to oppose this appeal for variance. These are my neighbors. I have never met them. They're nice people. I really think that they have missed what this change of variance does to the neighborhood. People are coming into the neighborhood, which is just one block off of the, we're in a residential neighborhood, and we're just one block off of the Bootleggers Cove, the downtown area, which is highly dense, impact, a lot of condos, a lot of traffic there. Now, what people are doing here is they're coming into the neighborhood and purchasing properties that won't sell because of the structures that they want to put in their lot doesn't fit, and they're applying for variance. And if they do, if this variance is approved, there's a 1.2 feet that violates the setback. You're going into the setback 1.2 feet. If this variance is approved, I'm really scared that it's going to set a precedent in the area. And what's going to happen is people are going to wait until people can't sell their property because, like the property across the street from where I live, the earthquake moved it completely into the setbacks. Now people come and buy it, and they're going to rebuild the whole structure. They have to move it back to 20 feet from the front, and it's going to ruin their front view, right? So I'm really worried that if this is accepted, it's going to set a precedent for variances on the setbacks, and that's going to they're going to build a large structure. They're going to put a lot of people there, and it's going to really ruin the quality of life that we have there. We're so close to the city there, and in the evenings, and because it's low area, it's quiet. It's incredibly quiet, and it's really a good quality of life there, and I thoroughly enjoy it. Now, I think that my neighbors have not considered what approval of this variance is going to do to their quality of life in that area. So I oppose this variance on two issues. One is a fire code violation, which is really, really obvious to me when you change a carport into a garage. A carport only has a roof. It doesn't have any walls, right? And most of them have flat roofs. So you're adding a lot, when you change it, you're adding a lot of material that can burn in a fire, okay?
Mr. Lopez, if you can summarize for us and wrap it up, I'm sorry, your time has expired.
Is it up completely now?
Yes, it has. So if you can summarize and close out, please.
Okay, I have a sense of close. Okay, and the other one, of course, is what I mentioned was a 1.2 feet setback. I don't want people to go in there and buy property and then put large structures there, knowing that there's a precedent set where these setbacks have already been approved. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. If the applicant would like to offer any rebuttal, you've got a minute, 25 seconds remaining.
Madam Chair, I'd like to ask the gentleman who testified some questions,
Sure.
please.
Mr. Lopez, if you don't mind.
Of course.
I don't know if I exactly caught where your property is located. Did you say the southeast corner of S Street and 10th Avenue?
This is the southeast corner of S Street and 10th Avenue.
Okay.
It's the southeast. There's really no property on the northwest corner.
Right. Okay. That helps me. And then you do understand that the variance that we're considering tonight is not an encroachment into a setback? That
No, I don't. I was under the impression that there was a 1.2 feet encroachment into the setback?
according to the staff packet, the Chapter 2106.030C, parent 2F, allows a private garage or carport to project into a required rear side or rear setback abutting an alley. So what we're really here to talk about tonight is the percentage of area occupied by the structure on the lot, not an encroachment into a setback.
So what's the 1.2 feet?
Well, the 1.2 feet, as I see it, is shown on the plot plan. That's in the northwest corner where the existing house has conforming rights. Is that correct, Ms. O'Brien?
Madam Chair, Mr. Vig, that's correct. The house was built in 1952, and it has non-conforming rights because it has existed since 1952.
Okay. So there is a 1.2 feet encroachment into the setback.
Mr. Lopez, that exists on the house portion, not the carport or the garage that's being discussed. That's the northwest corner of the existing home.
Well, I had two different issues. One was with the garage for the fire. You know, how the difference between a carport and a garage can affect the spread of a fire. That was the first one. And the second one was the encroachment that is there.
Okay. And this evening, this request is about the carport, so thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
What was that?
Is that everything?
Yes. That's
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Would the applicant want to provide any rebuttal?
Thank you. I think that Mr. Vig probably clarified that this variance is not about an encroachment. It is about the 1.3% over the lot, the maximum allowable lot coverage.
Thank you.
Do we have still a little time?
1 minute.
1 minute?
8 seconds.
So hi, Mr. Lopez. We've 34 years, and I was born 2 blocks away from you. I'm concerned about what you say. If we're neighbors, we should know that. You're more than welcome to come down and see me and take a look at this. It is a carport. It's got a couple of sides on it, but we can talk about that another time for you. So the focus here is clearly on the lot coverage, and that's what we're trying to move forward with. And I'd be glad to answer any other questions that you might have from the perspective of what I said as well.
Are there any other questions from the board? Is there anyone else who's wishing to testify? Seeing none, public hearing is now closed. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Can I get a motion from the board? Can we get a motion to open this for discussion? Mr. Vig?
Thank you, Madam Chair. In case number 2014-020, I move that we grant a variance from Chapter 21.06, Dimensional Standards and Measurements, Table 21.06-1, to allow a proposed garage to exceed the 40% maximum lot coverage in the R2D district, subject to recommendations 1 through 4 on page 7 of the staff packet.
Thank you, Mr. Vig. Ms. Dole, you seconded the motion. Would you like to address it?
I seconded in order to open for discussion. I'm concerned and welcome the thoughts of my colleagues on standards 1 through 3. And I'm concerned that if we say that the small lot size is an exceptional or extraordinary physical circumstances that justifies, it just does not seem to be an exceptional or extraordinary physical circumstance to me to justify an additional expansion beyond the allowed lot coverage. As far as going from a carport to a garage, it seems to me like that would be allowed as long as it was not, as long as it was not expanded to go above and beyond the maximum lot coverage under the zoning code, which I understand could preclude a second vehicle from being in there at the same time, but I don't know that, I guess I'm not convinced, again, that the criteria under A and B have been, or A, B, and C have been met. Under B, there's a lot of what was said goes to garages being a common right of enjoyment, but not, but you know, whether it's a 1-car or 2-car garage was not addressed. I welcome the thoughts of my colleagues.
Mr. Vig, would you like to address your motion?
Thank you. With respect to standard number 1 on there exist exceptional or extraordinary physical circumstances of the subject property, staff states they do not believe this standard is substantially met, and I admit that I struggle with that myself, and it's difficult to tell from the information in the packet about sizes of neighboring lots in the area. Perhaps there are some that are 7,000 square feet. As the applicant states, it's difficult to tell. I do know that that staff packets refers to numerous improvements and additions that have been made to the house over the years, which consumed additional percentages of the lot area, and in order to construct a proposed garage, which is a common right of enjoyment in Anchorage, perhaps that perimeter of the house is now precluded or created this physical circumstance. So I'd be interested to hear from my colleagues on their thoughts whether that is the case. And I'll move on to standard number 2. Because of these physical circumstances, strict application of the code creates an exceptional or undue hardship upon the property owner and would deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same district. We have, during my 5 years on this board, heard various requests from applicants who wanted to construct garages. A lot of times it is in the downtown area, the older part of Anchorage where lots are smaller, and that right of common enjoyment is that's how we've viewed garages in the past, and so I can see where that could be considered, in my mind, a condition that creates a substantial, the standard being substantially met. The hardship is not self-imposed on standard number 3, not self-imposed, that special conditions and circumstances do not result from the actions of the applicant. The applicant's here in advance asking for permission to construct this this garage structure, and I appreciate their application and presentation to persuade us that they didn't create this situation. Prior owners of the lot perhaps contributed to the situation they have to deal with now, but as he said, Mr. Holton said, they've lived there 34 years. I don't know how much of that they contributed to the already to the situation that exists today, I guess I would say. And so I would be interested to hear from others on the board on standard number 3, but I won't walk through standards 4 through 8. I believe staff's presentation and write-up in the packet speaks for itself, and I concur with their findings that the standards 4 through 8 are substantially met, and that's my thought.
Thank you, Mr. Vig. Is there more discussion from the board? Ms. McKay.
I, too, have struggled with the first 3 standards and may be reaching to find some exceptional or extraordinary physical circumstance. I think that the fact that this lot is on an alley is exceptional. It's not exceptional for the downtown area, but it's exceptional for most of the neighborhoods in Anchorage. And that alley kind of mitigates the lot coverage, that the lot is not, the small lot is not directly between 2 other lots, that there is something on the side that perhaps mitigates the coverage of the lot. And that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Ms. McKay. Any other members of the board wishing to speak to this? Any other discussion? Mr. Vick, go ahead.
Madam Chair, I appreciate Ms. McKay's comments and pointing out the existence of the alley on the south side of the lot, which does provide a buffer to the lot to the south, which is 6A. From an appearance standpoint and other reasons, I do believe that is a mitigating circumstance for the lot coverage issue, which is, in my view, a very minor amount over the 40%. And so I believe I can come to a conclusion in my mind that standard 1 and 3 are substantially met, and I would vote to support the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Vick. I'd just like to add, I appreciate everybody's thoughtful comments on this. It seems to be such a small percentage to be thinking this heavily over. However, based on how clear we need to be with the decisions we're making and the standards we're needing to meet, we need to ponder it carefully. I also appreciate the input on the alley. I think that is a good point. The other thing that I am comfortable with is the size of the garage. If it was possible to reduce that and decrease the square footage, but it does look to be for 2 vehicles a minimum size as would be functional. So I would agree with Mr. Vig on findings 1 and 3, that I think I can also agree that I feel the standard is substantially met when I consider the alley in conjunction with this, and I plan to support the motion. Is there anyone else on the board that'd like to speak to this? Seeing none, I guess we'll vote. All right, we have 5 affirmative and 1 in the negative, which because of the short board, or I'm sorry, is 4 affirmative and 1 in the negative, because of the short board does mean that the variance has been declined. The decision of the board is final. You will receive the written finding from staff, and within 30 days of the finding, if you feel aggrieved by the decision of the board, you can appeal that decision to the Superior Court. Thank you for coming tonight. We're going to take a 5-minute recess before we move on to our next case. Okay. Welcome back, everybody. We're ready for our last case, which is case 2014-026, petitioner being the Peterson Group, for an encroachment into the required yard setbacks. Will staff please present a sufficiency of notice?
On January 23rd of this year, 283 public hearing notices were mailed. 1 response was received from the public in support of granting the variance. Also, the South Addition Community Council passed a resolution supporting the variance. There were no comments from Fairview Community Council. Madam Chair, the author of this case is not able to be here tonight. I'm presenting on his behalf. I'll have to rely on the applicants. I read the case, but I'm just not as familiar as the person who wrote the case. However, this was reviewed under the old code that expires at the end of this year. It is a variance request from AMC 2140-050G, minimum yard requirements to allow a 4.1-foot encroachment into a 20-foot front yard setback for a second and third story building overhang. The property is 3rd edition, Block 15C, Lot 1A, Cook Inlet Townhomes 3A, 3B, 3C, and 3D, located on Cook Inlet Loop.
Thank you. Are there any comments on the sufficiency of notice from the board? If you'd please proceed with your findings.
Yes, Madam Chair. As mentioned, the petitioner is requesting this variance. It's an encroachment into a 20-foot front yard setback for a second and third story building overhang. In reviewing the facts of this case, the special or exceptional physical circumstances or the special circumstances that were found to be met is that in 2007, the Building Safety Division approved a change order to the original building permit that was issued in 2006. The change order showed the encroachment, and the change order was approved in error. The building was constructed in accordance with the municipally approved plans before the current owner, who is requesting this variance, acquired the property. Now, this particular property has 3 front yards. It is a corner lot with more than 2 frontages. The required front yard setback is 20 feet. The secondary front yard setbacks and the side yard setback are 10 feet. The front yard setback was determined to be along Cordova Street. If it had been determined that this was a secondary front yard setback, there would be no need for a variance because the building is 15.9 feet from Cordova Street lot boundary, and there would not have been any encroachment into the required 10-foot secondary front yard setback. However, Cordova was determined to be the primary front yard setback. And because of these physical circumstances, strict application of the 20-foot front yard setback requirement would create undue hardship upon the property owner. The encroachment was constructed after Building Safety Division approved a change order in error. The need for the variance is beyond the control of the current petitioner. He acquired the property, or the company acquired the property after the building was constructed, and they were not, the company that currently owns the property did not submit the plans that were in error, and again, the Building Safety Division did approve plans that were incorrect that resulted in the encroachment. If the variance were to be granted, there are no structure separation violations. It would not be injurious to the neighborhood or detrimental to the public welfare if the variance is granted. Drainage and runoff do not appear to be issues, and the encroachment is not visually obvious, and there have been no objections from the neighborhood. The variance is dimensional and would not allow a prohibited use. There are no identified health or safety issues. Cordova Street is already constructed to an urban standard with type 1 barrier, curbs, gutters, sidewalks, public street lights, and public signs on both sides of the street. And the variance is that if it is granted, is the minimum variance necessary. The petitioner seeks approval of a 20% encroachment for second and third story building overhang. The amount of the variance appears to be reasonable given that the encroachment already exists Moreover, the 4.1-foot encroachment is not visually obvious because the edge of the sidewalk is approximately 2 feet away from the property line. The department then, based on the above, finds that all the 7 standards of approval are substantially met and therefore recommends approval of the variance request subject to the 2 conditions on page 5, condition number 1, that recording a notice of zoning action, and then number 2 reiterates what the variance is if it is approved. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. O'Brien. Are there any questions for staff from the board? Seeing none, will the applicant please come forward and spell your last name for us?
Madam Chairman, members of the board, my name is Tony Hoffman, Hoffman. I'm with the Boutte Company, and we represent the petitioner tonight. With me tonight also is Trevor Edmondson with the Peterson Group, the developer on the property. I'm not going to go into much of the history since staff has done a good job documenting it. They've acknowledged the fact that when Peterson took over the property in 2012, they relied on that change order that was issued, and the building had already been built. What happened is in 2007, after the change order had been issued, the wood went up, the shell went up on that particular building on the east side along Cordova, and the developer went bankrupt, basically, and left the property. Between 2007 and 2012, the property became dilapidated, and it became a distressed property. It was the rest of the property are foundations that are open, and there was a lot of vagrants, a lot of homeless people were going through the property, utilizing the property for various things. When Peterson came into 2012, they bought the property, started developing it, or they acquired rights to the property, they started developing it, finishing the interior of the fourplex, or the 4-unit townhouse building. And they met with the city many times, building safety included, discussed the property, discussed the various permits that were in place, what would be needed to continue construction. None of the issue that's before you tonight came up. So they continued, they finished the building. We actually filed the plat. We went through, did a condo plat. It's filed under the state statute. There's 4 legal units sitting there. We went to get the CO so they could finalize the sales that are pending, the 4 sales, and this issue came up in December. So here we are. And this is an issue that the city has acknowledged that is basically their mistake, but we're here to clean it up tonight. With that said, I'm going to go ahead and we appreciate staff's work on helping us document this and follow it through. We still don't necessarily agree with all the building safety determinations on the setbacks, but we agree that we need to work through it and get it legal. So that's why we're here tonight. We do accept the staff's recommendations and hope you concur with them. And with that, I'm going to let Mr. Edmondson talk.
Madam Chair, members of the board, my name is Trevor Edmondson. That's Edmondson. I'm with the Peterson Group. I just want to touch on a little bit more of the history that was talked about. We purchased, as Tony said, the project in 2012 out of foreclosure from Northrim Bank. Prior to our purchase of the project, we met with municipal staff 3 different times to review the file of the project to make sure that there were no issues with the project that needed to be rectified, like the one that was brought to our attention in December. We have 4 sales on the building that are pending closing and have already been delayed a month for us to get through this process. So there's been some real positive momentum with the project, and which is a good thing because the project sat in a state of disrepair for many, many years. So just a couple notes I made here is that the permits that we have for the building to finish the construction of the building, we essentially took over the permits that were already in place. So we did not submit a new set of drawings or plot plans for the construction of this building. We took over what was already in place and approved by the municipal staff in 2006 and 2007. As was said, MOA approved the condition that we are currently trying to rectify, and I appreciate staff's efforts to help us get through this process, and again, we concur with their findings. The condition, though, is consistent with the rest of the neighborhood. I have some pictures here that show the setbacks of neighboring buildings. Matter of fact, there's a single-family home just to the south of this building that encroaches closer to Cordova Street than our building. And additionally, there's a condo building across the street, across Cordova Street, that sits closer to Cordova Street than our building. So I'd also like to note that there was buffer landscaping had been originally installed by the previous developer along Cordova Street. That buffer landscaping had gone into a state of disrepair. So this last fall, we ripped all that buffer landscaping out that had been previously installed and installed new buffer landscaping, which shows on the pictures as well. So there is buffer landscaping that helps this condition. So helps shield this condition. And as staff said, the sidewalk sits 18 feet back from the building, and so that additionally helps this condition. So that I'd take any questions you may have.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the applicant from the board? No questions? Thank you for your presentation. Seeing no questions, we'll open it up to everyone else for public hearing. All right. Any other comments from staff?
Thank you. No, Madam Chair.
All right. Seeing no presentations for public hearing, we'll close the public hearing. All right. Can we get a positive motion from staff? I'm sorry, from the board. Just realized what I said. Mr. Vig, thank you.
Madam Chair, in case 2014-026, I move that we grant a variance from AMC 21.40.050G minimum yard requirements to allow a 4.1 foot encroachment into a 20-foot front yard setback for a second and third-story building overhang, subject to conditions, recommendations 1 and 2 on page 5 of the staff packet.
Thank you, Mr. Vig. Ms. McKay seconded. Mr. Vig, would you please speak to your motion?
Thank you. I appreciate the applicant's testimony and staff's presentation, and clearly there was a situation that was not of the applicant's making, and I appreciate the fact that the municipal staff recognized that and is working it out. And so with that, my findings on standard number 1, that there are extraordinary and exceptional physical circumstances. I agree with staff that that standard is substantially met through essentially allowing a non-conforming or a non-conforming situation to be constructed creates an unusual physical circumstance on the property. Standard number 2, because of those physical circumstances, strictly applying the code would create an exceptional or undue hardship on the property owner. I agree that that standard is substantially met. The property owner was not aware through, as he testified, 3 meetings with municipal staff, was not aware until sales were pending, and so clearly they that would be a hardship to apply that standard. Then standard number 3, the hardship is not self-imposed. Again, the applicant was not party to and was not aware of the situation that existed. So I agree with staff that that standard is substantially met. Standard number 4, the variance would not adversely affect the use of adjacent property. That standard is met. I agree with staff. It's a relatively minor encroachment adjacent to the street. And we heard testimony to the fact that the sidewalk is 18 or so feet away from the building. Number 5, the variance if granted is in keeping with the intent of the code, would not change the character of the zoning district. I agree with staff and the applicant that that standard is met. Standard number 6, the variance if granted would not adversely affect the health, safety, and welfare of the people of the municipality of Anchorage. That standard is met. And we've seen comments or agreement from municipal departments to that effect. Standard number 7, the variance granted is a minimum variance that will make possible a reasonable use of the land. Again, I believe that it's a minor encroachment that occurred and is the minimum that will make possible a reasonable use of the land, given the physical circumstances. So I intend to support the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Vig. Ms. McKay, would you like to address your motion or the motion?
I concur with Mr. Vig and the staff's findings on the standards, and I will support the motion.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the board that would like to address the motion? Ms. Dole, go ahead.
I concur with Mr. Vig and Ms. McKay, and just would like to say that the physical nature of the existing encroachment built with the approval of the municipality is what I consider an exceptional physical circumstance.
Thank you, Ms. Dole. Anyone else? Seeing no other discussion, let's vote. All right. The variance has been granted. The decision of the board is final. You'll receive a written finding from staff, and within 30 days, if you feel aggrieved by the decision, which you probably won't, you can appeal that decision to the Superior Court. Thanks for your time tonight. All right, thanks, everybody. Is there any discussion about the cases tonight? No discussion? Ms. McKay, go ahead.
Are we to keep a hold of our Warner case? Okay, good.
Okay, and thank you, everybody. This will be my last meeting, so upon my departure, I'm supposed to ask if anybody wants to take the reins. Any nominations for chair? That's kind of... Yeah, I feel a little bit bad about bringing Dean up without him being here, but I don't...
I think it would be appropriate to wait till we have more of the members here and have a discussion about it. I would like to commend Ms. Vlad for taking on the chair role for the time you did, and appreciate your service on the board.
Okay, thanks, everybody. Anything else? Hey, it could have been worse. We could have had the other case, so. All right, thanks, everyone. We're adjourned. Oh, a motion to adjourn, please. Ms. McKay. Perfect. And Ms. Dole, thank you for seconding. Adjourn. Good night, everybody.